We all know the quote very well by now. Why did Justin Trudeau pick a cabinet with 50% men and 50% women? Quote, because it's 2015, he said. Well, now it's 2016, and a new report from the Rural Ontario Institute has found that we're a long way from a 50-50 world when it comes to our politicians in rural Ontario. Joining us now to discuss how to get more women into council chambers across this province, we welcome Marg Isbester. She is Deputy Mayor of Greater Napanee. Michelle Hanson, councillor in Goderich, Ontario. Catherine Redden, councillor in Trent Hills, Ontario. And Liz Huff, councillor in Leeds and the Thousand Islands, Ontario. It's great to have you four here with us at TVO tonight.
Thank you.
I want to start by just getting to know you all a little bit better, and maybe a little bit about where you're from as well, because I know where everybody's from except Trent Hills. Catherine, where's Trent Hills?
Well, Trent Hills is made up of a number of small municipalities centered around the town of Campbellford, and it's right straddling the Trent River.
So a couple hours east of here.
It is a couple of hours east of here.
How'd you get into this racket to begin with?
Oh, well, about 1989, I was raising a couple of young children. We had a business in Campbellford, and there were a few things taking place that, some projects with council that I thought maybe I could assist with or add to. And when we petitioned the council to assist us, they weren't as forthcoming. And I thought, well, maybe I can get involved and make some changes. And I put my name forward for that election and was acclaimed, and spent the next few years on council.
I hear that all the time. There's an issue that somebody's upset about, they run, they win, they get in, they fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we did fix it.
Yeah,
So it was great.
that's the way it works. Liz, how about you? How'd you get in?
I was...
Oh, we should say Leeds and the Thousand Islands, so you're out around, 3 hours east of
we
here, I guess.
surround Gananoque, 3 hours east, the beautiful St. Lawrence, up along the Rideau, all small hamlets. No memorable name town that necessarily people in the rest of the province would remember. I moved to a place called Sealy's Bay on the Rideau to retire and to paint. And probably based on my work experience, I got invited to lead as a volunteer an economic revitalization project in my village, which meant that I had to go to council regularly to understand where they were at, see how they could help us. There were things we wanted to do that involved public lands. And I ended up attending pretty much every council meeting for the 4 years of the previous term, watched a lot of things going on and thinking, they have some problems here in terms of governance and the level of focus. And I thought I had one of those eye-opener things where I thought, I could complain and criticize, or I could run.
So you ran?
I ran.
Did you win?
I won.
First time out. There's
That's
two
right.
for two. Okay. All right, Deputy Mayor, you want to tell us first of all, Napanee's a little bigger than these other places, but again, about three and a half hours east of here?
2.5 hours, I guess, depending
drive
on
fast,
how. That's well.
Deputy.
It's right on 401, and it's an amalgamated community that runs right to Lake Ontario, and quite a bit north of us, not quite to Highway 7, but we face the same sort of things in that needed to get some things done. I retired from a retail paint and wallpaper business after 35 years. That was in March, and in September my husband felt it was time that maybe I got involved in things and didn't spend quite so much time at home. So that led to that. I'd always had an interest in what my children were doing in sports and education, so it was just a good segue. Second term, I decided I wanted more experience and ran for deputy mayor, and have been lucky enough that the people wanted me back again.
And you ran and won the first time?
Ran and won the first time.
3 for 3.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Michelle, are you going to make it 4 for 4?
I am going to make it 4 for 4.
Yeah.
I ran the first time and topped the polls as I ran and won. I was the executive director of a Huron Women's Shelter, shelter for abused women and their children. And so as a result, I had a fair amount of experience in the public eye. I had experience of public speaking. I was invited, encouraged to join the Police Services Board because, of course, issues around policing and women's shelters are important matters. So through there, I got more interested in politics. And then, unfortunately, my husband passed away in 2008. And 3 years later, I felt like I was mostly through the grieving process. And I thought, well, I could maybe start to date. That looked way too difficult, so I decided to run for municipal politics instead.
Which was easier than dating.
Way easier than thinking about dating, even thinking about it.
I see. And Goderich, again, a beautiful
town of Goderich, yes.
Lake
right
Huron.
on Lake Huron.
Yeah.
about an hour and a half northwest of London, Ontario.
Would it be fair to say it's the prettiest town in all of Ontario?
Well, in fact, that's exactly what we said.
I know you do. I know you do.
We call ourselves the prettiest town in Canada because the Queen Mother said so.
And because Hamilton lets you. Okay, let's move on here. In late February, the Rural Institute of Ontario, Rural Ontario Institute, released a report on who represents rural Ontario at the municipal level, and here is a bit of what they found. Let's bring this graphic up if we can. Under the question of whether it's a man's world, because 75% of rural Ontario councillors are men. 83% of rural Ontario so-called heads of council are men. Mind you, 43% of the women who ran for council in 2014 were elected. That's a pretty high number. Only 37% of men who ran for council in 2014 were elected. So let's start this. Okay, Deputy Mayor, why so few women?
Well, I think so few women because we're involved in so many things that we think we're too busy to do this. I also think that many women that maybe either have had their occupations at home or in a business that has been female-oriented, they're afraid of the conflict. And also, as we stated, I guess, at some point during any conversation, is the amount of work that's involved and the amount of time that you're away from home.
How many hours a week do you spend on your job?
I probably, at this point as Deputy Mayor, spend, by my own doing, probably at least 40 to 50 hours, and then functions after that.
For a quote-unquote part-time job?
For a part-time job, you're right.
Okay. Councillor Huff, how about you? Why so few women?
You know, I tend to avoid gender stereotypes if I can, but one of my thoughts is that women are probably less likely to do something until they're very prepared for it. So there might be a bit more of a reluctance because of wanting to feel they're ready. I personally don't find that there's a big gender area. I remember a couple of times when I was door knocking, a few people said, "Don't you think there's too many women down there and that's the problem? And they don't really know the municipal business." And that would be from people who thought we mostly needed to know about gravel and vehicles. And I felt like I might not be an expert in gravel and vehicles, but we have staff who are, and there's a lot of issues I think we do need to have expertise in that I didn't see there, like human resources, policy development.
Judgment.
So, yeah, judgment. But you know what, that was pretty minor. By and large, I've not encountered a sense that my gender was a barrier in this role or in my career.
Councillor Redden, how about you? Why so few women?
Well, I have to agree with Liz in terms of women are busy with a lot of other things that they're doing in their lives and playing some pretty important roles in other very important parts of the community in leadership roles. I've always had one or two other women on council. During my first term when I was in 89 and in the 90s when I was councillor and then mayor, I saw more women running for council and getting elected at that time. And I was the first female mayor in the municipality, so I hope I set a bit of an example and was able to mentor a few. Then I left and came back again in 2014. And I see more women, as we see around the table, that are playing more high-profile roles. And hopefully we're setting an example, but it still discourages me to hear that, well, it isn't something I'm interested in or something I want to play a role in. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's just one of those things, I guess, it still is something that we need to encourage more younger women to look at as an opportunity to show leadership.
Councillor Hinson, one of the things I hear frequently is too hard to raise money. We don't have the access to financial networks, and therefore hard to raise money. You don't have money, you can't be competitive. Is that true?
I don't think that's particularly the reason. Certainly not in my case, or some of the women that I've talked to. I see it on two levels. I think there's a social aspect. I think that there are gender stereotypes that women place themselves in, and they don't do it out of the ether. We still have roles that we see ourselves in as men and women. And certainly leadership for women is not the first thing that they often think of for themselves. So there's a societal aspect, but there's also a personal aspect. So particularly younger women, if a young woman leaves the home to go and be mayor or deputy mayor or even a councillor, she's often seen as abandoning the family, abandoning her responsibilities. Whereas when a man does that, he's serving in the community. So we
Don't you
have,
hate that double standard?
I do hate the double standard, but I'm a longtime feminist and I believe that it's true. Those standards do still exist. So, I mean, the fact that we are 4 women, that we are here saying it's a good job, we all sat in the green room and said, we like doing this, that we can act as mentors and role models and encourage other women to take up the mantle of leadership.
Do you find the case that you have a lot of people coming up to you over the years and saying, how can you do this job? Shouldn't you be home with your family or something like that? Do you get that kind of a comment?
No, whether I was campaigning or even with my family, and I think that there's not one of us around the table that would disagree with the fact that you can't do this without support from family and friends.
Absolutely.
And they have to understand. And I think that's also a drawback, as some women and men, not just women, get into it and find they don't have the support. So I would have to agree. I don't think if anybody said it to me, it was in jest, because if somebody said to me, little lady, this isn't the job for you, it wouldn't sit well with any of us. And I'd like to think that those times are long, long gone.
I wonder whether or not it could be that many women just don't value the idea of going to public meetings and having shouting matches with people that they think are idiots. Is that part of the problem here too?
That's stereotyping politicians as idiots. So we hope that we don't all look like idiots all of the time. But I think you're right. I think there's a conflict issue problem.
Conflict aversion?
Yeah, exactly. Women tend to, if they take up leadership, they do it in a relational way. And often what we see in, well, question period in the House of Commons, there's nothing relational about that. And so if that's held up as the standard of the way in which we can debate, then that's not something that most women would find attractive.
Could it just be that there's not that many women who want to run for this? This is not of interest to them?
I think that's true. I think a lot of people, especially younger people, are so busy with their lives that they're relatively unaware of what level of government is doing what, and they, their interests come to the fore only when there's something that directly affects them. And that's a big issue. I mean, to me, that's actually the more interesting issue, is how do you engage people in understanding what's actually done at the municipal level. There are many, many interesting things. They're beginning to pay attention to federal and provincial issues, but we need younger people on our councils. I mean, we are not reflective of our residency, and it concerns me that decisions get made by people who are by and large all over 60, and yet the barriers to their participation because of the time required, the income that they would have to forego, the additional costs. I mean, most rural municipalities aren't in a position to pay councillors much at all.
What do you make?
I make $16,000 a year.
For how many hours a week?
I think it's about 30. I figured out recently it's probably less than $10 an hour. I have a 75-kilometer round trip to go to my council chambers. I'm all over a large rural municipality. I have to get my hair cut a little more often than I might have before. Had to buy my professional wardrobe back that I'd let go. I have to donate to a lot of causes because I go, just like you do, Steve,
You show up to their meetings
events,
and you
have to pay your freight at the door and not let them pay you lunch, and show all the proper code of good behaviors, and it's expensive.
I think people would be interested to know this. How much do you make?
About 16.
16?
Oh, I'm going to renegotiate. 14.
14,000 a year?
14 as deputy mayor.
14 is deputy mayor?
Under 10, 9,800.
Yeah.
Because
So we're not in it for the money.
No, clearly. But often you read headlines about how much municipal councillors are paid, and I guess those are the numbers that come out of the big cities as opposed to the rural municipalities. Yeah.
We mentioned age, and I think that's really important because the study talked about the fact that the mean age of rural councils is 60, and the mean age in Ontario is 40. So we are grossly underrepresented.
Actually, we have that here. Let's put this up. Sheldon, if you wouldn't mind, more stats from the Rural Ontario Institute report. As was just said, 60 years old is the median age of rural Ontario's municipal politicians. 40 years old is the median age of the general population. 9% of rural Ontario's councillors are between 18 and 40 years of age, only 9%. 69% of rural Ontario councillors are between the age of 50 and 70. 2% of rural Ontario's councillors are visible minorities. I mean, it's pretty apparent from those numbers, Deputy Mayor, that young people don't see this as a job for them. Why do you think?
Well, again, time commitment, and certainly we don't do it for the money, and I think it's very difficult. We did have a young man that ran for the mayor's position and only lost by 3 votes. You know, everyone said to him, you know, you don't start at the top, but he didn't want to see an acclamation. I think it's extremely important that we try to get younger people into it, but I think one of the ways was how much do we teach in the schools, whether it's secondary or elementary, about governance. You know, should we not be saying this is what this is what Ontario politics is all about, not just the MPs and the MPPs. There's a grassroots. Start by volunteering, work your way up, and there just doesn't seem to be that. Maybe these community hours that are having to be served by the students in secondary school might introduce them, but I don't think we give them enough opportunities as young people to see what's really out there.
Catherine, is there something that the system ought to be doing to make this more attractive for younger people?
Well, the system in terms of education or just the community as a whole?
Whatever, the community,
think,
the province, the...
Well, first of all, I think the community has to be receptive to younger candidates. I think many times they do get younger candidates and they kind of brush them away as being inexperienced or not knowing what they're doing. I think in some cases the community itself has profiled someone who's a little older, a little more experienced, maybe a little touch of gray, as being sager, wiser, and more capable of managing their tax dollars. Whereas it's great to have younger people asking those questions that need to be asked. But I agree, there needs to be more programs, more things within the community as well to expose young people to what they're doing. I got my training through 4-H. The first 4-H club I went to at 12, the first thing we did was talk about parliamentary procedure, running a meeting. We appointed a president of the club and a secretary and so on.
You got exposure right
For me,
away.
it carried to junior farmers. And I want to put in a plug for the Rural Ontario Institute, which sponsors a program called the Advanced Agricultural Leadership Program, which takes individuals in rural Ontario through ages and stages, but it schools them in leadership. It takes them to Queen's Park, takes them to the federal government to look at that. It trains them in speaking and on all those skills that are necessary. And I think we need to be sporting more of those to educate individuals so when they take that leadership in the role in the community, whether it's a president of this club or that club, they also look at council as another opportunity.
Having said that, Liz, you know, one does hear this in rural Ontario, where if somebody who are in their 20s were running for office, you know, you'd have a lot of people presumably in that town saying things like, well, that guy's got no gray in his hair, he's not ready for it, he doesn't know anything, he has no experience, he's never met a payroll, he's never paid taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that view is out there, right? How do you combat that?
I can think of a young councillor in a municipality next to me who's probably about 20 who ran. She had terrific social media networks, all of the young people who went to school with her. She was elected, absolutely. It's terrific. You know, she had a baby within a week of beginning her job, and that was an experience for that whole council to have breastfeeding mom at council meetings. My mayor is in his 40s. He's got a family. He's trying to juggle his career. He has to be on county council. I'm consciously aware of what a financial strain it is for him to put in all the hours and forego the income. So it's interesting that you said we don't do it for the money, but I think the corollary of that is that people who don't have the money can't do it. Exactly. And we have deep poverty. You know, we might on surface around the Thousand Islands look like we have a higher than average income in Ontario, but there's a gross masking of the realities of many, many people who make under 30,000. And actually, Steve, in terms of the comment about the stereotypes people might make about younger people, I don't see that. I think people are more concerned with the, over 80-year-olds who say, 3 girls used to run this place, why do we need 40 staff now? Or they've got an old perception of you can drive there, you don't need to do this. So they're not necessarily in touch with the lived experience of being in poverty or of having to drive into the city, and so we really need a better representation of who is in the municipality, in my view.
Michelle, any ideas about how to make it more appealing for younger people to get involved?
Well, there's an economic problem because municipalities really cannot afford to pay what a salary is required for a family. So that's a reality. I think the education piece, I think the mentoring piece, I think are all good things. The reason why, for me, it's really, really important is because it's essentially a democracy, and those that represent us should represent us. So there should be representation from men, from women, from all age groups, and we haven't come to it yet, but also from visible minorities.
I don't want to leave the impression as well that somehow urban Ontario is doing a fabulously better job of having its minority communities represented on its councils, because you're right, it's not either. But is there something to be done here?
Well, absolutely. I think that, first of all, as a nation, I'm proud of what we're doing in terms of the way in which we are encouraging, inviting, and bringing in refugees. So I think that is a first step. And when the balance becomes that we do have more folks that don't look like we white Anglo-Saxon folks, that there will be more education, we will understand better, and there'll be a better encouragement and a different set of numbers, right? There'll be a different electorate. And so I would assume that would help to change the numbers.
Here's some things that the Rural Ontario Institute thinks could attract more people, new people, to municipal politics. Let's bring up this graphic as well. For example, launching public education campaigns to help people understand municipal politics. It's often a level of government people don't necessarily think about firsthand. Create codes of conduct that will govern behavior at council meetings, getting back to what we were saying earlier in my unfortunate language. Encourage networking and mentorship opportunities for councillors. Improve pre-candidacy training for people who are thinking about running for council. I want to find out whether any of these things are happening in your municipalities. Go ahead.
Yes.
They are happening.
Well, I'm part of a women's network and have been for about 30 years. And it's been a phenomenal asset to me in what I'm doing as a group to bounce ideas off of. But about, I would say 10, 12 years ago, we initiated a councillor training. So you want to run for municipal council. And several of us were involved. One was a school trustee, and we ran a day's workshop. And then we did a second one a few years after that for
Anybody
another
show
election.
up?
Yes,
Lots
it was
of people show up?
excellent. We had several who ended up running for council. In fact, one ended up running as mayor in another community. It was a fabulous opportunity to give people some insight into the hours that you're going to have to spend, the amount of work. I recall when I first went on council, I asked for some materials to give me a sense of what I would be up against, and they said, you have to win first, and then we'll show you the stuff. We've come a long way since then, but frankly, I think many come on council full of vim and vigor and ready to go, and they're going to lower taxes and do this and this and this, and have no concept of how the bureaucracy works, the red tape, the sort of things they're up against. And even some of them, I think in some cases, are very shocked about the animosity that can come across the table between councillors or from taxpayers, ratepayers. Those are the things that kind of make that being on council a little bit difficult. So giving you the skills in advance to know, do I really want to do this?
Right. Liz, how about you? In your municipality, anything to get the doors open?
We had access to the AMO supported courses on so you want to be a councillor, AMO, the Association of Municipalities for Ontario. I sit on that board. The one thing that I've been thinking about, because I'm very leery of language like succession planning. I remember a former mayor who kind of said, this is my protege and I'm doing succession planning. And I thought, no, this is what the residents decide. But it seems to me committees offer an opportunity for people to get more comfortable with the milieu. And I actually think in my municipality, we don't give stipends to people on committees. I think we could. We could even consider a youth seat on our committees, because simply, I said I went to council meetings for 4 years and watched. That meant that I was pretty aware of what was the body of work they were doing and the protocol. And I remember thinking that there's not even so much as a sign up that says this is where you find an agenda or this is the Wi-Fi code. So it's alien territory for people. And but participating in a committee gets them used to the camera. We videotape all of our meetings. That's something that makes people nervous. How to draft a motion, all of those things that you have to do very fast on the fly. And the integrity commissioner idea interests me. I actually would love to see the province kind of supply a bank of integrity commissioners that would give us advice, because rural municipalities avoid that since they can't afford it. They're fearful of the costs, and yet that business of learning to debate with integrity and manage conflict, it certainly does scare you away from the work if it's a nasty place, and we need help. A mayor doesn't have, we've got a brand new mayor. They don't have necessarily the big hammer to kind of say, stop being.
Yeah.
How about in your neck of the woods?
Well,
what can you do to make things more welcoming?
Certainly the counselor to counselor training, I think, would be a code of conduct and something that's really enforced. And it's not just counselor to counselor, it's counselor to staff.
Yes.
Is extremely important. Some of us have gone in there, 35 years of retail, conflict is not, and customer service is something that you're very aware of, and how to solve the conflicts. So I think I went in with not really a bad attitude, but it's that respect factor. We can say what we want with respect in council chambers. We can disagree, but we can still respect the other person's. And I think that the code of conduct is so very important, and that it is not just out there on a piece of paper that we sign, that it's actually enforced.
You had any screaming matches with any fellow councillors?
Tell the truth.
Not in council chambers.
Where did it happen?
It was after a meeting, and I know we're not really supposed to do this, but it was something that I was very angry about. Another councillor, bringing in a gang to sort of say to us, this is the way that it's going to be. And it was my first term, and right in my notebook it still says bullies. And that's exactly what I wrote down. And I said to him, don't ever do that to me again. You can be popular with them. I also think we cannot have anyone run for council that has one agenda coming in. You cannot come in with an individual interest, because all of a sudden you're faced with, oh, geez, we got to make decisions on all these things. All I wanted to do was bring taxes down, or all I wanted to do was have a pool, or all I wanted to do was get somebody fired. And that's so very important.
That's often the impetus, right? That people
sure
think
it
they
is,
have a single issue, but once you're elected, you understand the incredible length, breadth, and depth of what it is we deal with.
Well, and a lot of people are in the positions because the focus of the vote was to throw someone else out. We had 50% turnover across the whole province in municipal positions. That's a huge burp in kind of governance stability, and a lot of campaigns were focused on throwing the guys out, same at all levels of government. So maybe less scrutiny to some of the new candidates.
Which is, to me, unfortunate.
Yep.
Because it makes it hard on those that are left behind, and it makes it hard on staff. There has to be some kind of continuity, and there has to be an understanding of what you're up against. It's not one issue.
It makes it incredibly hard on staff, and staff in rural places in particular are very vulnerable. There's not a lot of other jobs for them nearby if they care to stay in that community. I think something like 60 senior staff have been thrown out of their jobs since the last election. By councils who often think they're the problem, or you're not doing this the way I want to do it because I don't have enough experience yet. So,
is it also the case, Michelle, that in smaller municipalities you all know each other outside of council?
We know each other, and we know everybody's business.
Right.
Everybody knows everybody and everything that they do. So that when one stands, you stand for election with your entire background before you. There's nothing hidden. In some ways, there's an advantage to that. I think it means that you can immediately, or pretty immediately, identify where your supports would lie. And in small communities, I think that there's a slight difference too. In large cities, people will get in a disagreement, and it becomes, that's it, I'm going to pick up my marbles and go home, right? In small communities, you almost never do that, because I may pick up my marbles at the council table, but I'm going to meet you at the grocery store, I'm going to meet you at the restaurant, and I'm going to meet you at the laundromat. And so it's important that people have a way to get along to some degree. And so it's a very, very rare case where folks just absolutely stop communicating.
I need to find out here. How did you resolve things with the bullies?
I told them that I thought that they were bullies.
How'd they take that?
Not very well to begin with, but we're still going through it, and now at least that there is a give and take. It's not just a one-sided thing. If you're going to come into council chambers and say to us how wrong everything is and that I, as a new council member, should know better, then educate me, then work with me, give me the history for it. And that went a lot to resolve it. Yeah, I can't say they're all on my side yet, but I feel better at least at the back and forth. I don't like to be ignored.
Huh. Are you for all, for lack of a better word here, oops, I'm going to get in trouble here.
Go ahead.
Women of substance.
That's not the expression I was going for, but I'm sure you are.
Give you a good one.
No, I appreciate the help, but that's not what I was going for, actually. You know, when one listens to what it is that you actually do, you know, a lot of hours for not very much pay on sometimes very arcane issues that really is deep in the weeds and heavy duty into municipal planning and plumbing. And are you all a bit weird to spend so much of your lives doing this work? You don't think so?
No, I was going to say earlier, I think that even though there may be small numbers of women on municipal council, the women that are on municipal council don't just do that. They serve on other levels with AMO or OSUM or Roma. They get involved. They don't just sort of get involved, they go in 100% and give 100% as they do in their own lives. And that's part of the nature of, I think, attracting us to municipal council. We've worked in our school groups and our community groups and our church groups, and we see that there's benefit in extending that sort of volunteer service to our municipality. I think we're volunteers in the truest sense. It's 100%, and it's we eat it, sleep it, live it, breathe it. And maybe we are weird. Some of I know I have friends that would say, I would never do it. And maybe that's the nature of, maybe there aren't that many women that are that driven, but the ones that are really driven to do it.
But that's my point, Liz. I mean, on nights when, for example, your friends might be going to visit their kids and play with their grandkids on a weeknight, or just kick back with a beer and watch the Blue Jay game on the weekend, you're going to committee meetings. That's going to be a bit of a weird choice of priorities for some people.
I'll try and limit this to one topic, but I think we probably all can find ways to connect with issues that are deeply passionate for us. And for me, it's about the renaissance of rural Ontario. I absolutely think that the whole change of the world of work, broadband in rural areas, trying to find out how to have a sustainable economy and a sustainable treatment of the earth out in small places. You know, we're going to get Glenn Murray out to our part of the world this summer.
The Environment Minister.
Absolutely, the Environment Minister and the Climate Change Minister, and show him what we're doing in terms of adaptations in small places. You know, I have people who commute from Toronto to Toronto and live where we live because we offer an unbelievable quality of life. I do work with people in Iqaluit. I mean, broadband, the Uberization of work, what the sharing economy can offer in terms of transportation and housing in rural areas. I mean, it's an exciting place.
You have people commuting 2.5 hours daily?
No, not daily, but more and more he'll be out. You know, that job is more and more hours of the week he can now do it from our neck of the woods on the Rideau. You can buy a house for under $100,000 and live in one of the most beautiful parts of the province. You know, why not?
Amen.
Yeah.
I also think that probably a lot of us do it, and I don't know what the family relationships are with us sitting around the table, but this is a way that we're teaching our children how to take responsibility too. Now, my New Year's resolution has been for the past 4 or 5 years to make sure that I see my grandchildren at least once a week. Doesn't always happen, but and they live right in the same municipality I do. But I think that we probably as women, and I hate to get this gender specific, but we probably do display our love for and our passion for and our interest in what's going on. And we probably give that hopefully to our children for the next generation coming up.
Michelle, last word to you on this.
I think women are passionate creatures. I think that we give to the community, and I think we are creating amazing role models. I just would hope that the four of us here, with our own passion and our own desire, and we said so much in the green room, truly how much we loved what we're doing, that other women out there hear that and join us, because I am the only woman in my council chambers.
And that needs to change.
And that I want to change, yes.
We are so grateful to the four of you for either taking the train or driving to be with us here at Yonge and Eglinton in the middle of the capital city tonight. So good of Marg Isbester and Catherine Redden and Michelle Hansen and Liz Huff for joining us here at TVO tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.